Greetings from Green Bay, Wisconsin. My name is Tracy Blahnik, and I am the lead faculty for the Foundations of Teacher Education program at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. I am both honored and excited to share with you the amazing experience I had over the last year as a participant in the Equity in College Classroom Conference and the Bringing Theory to Practice grant. Last year, when I was fortunate enough to attend the Equity in the College Classroom Conference, they presented and challenged us with this grant opportunity, bringing theory to practice. And so I was so inspired after attending the conference, I went back to my college and I started brainstorming options and whether or not this grant was a great fit for my college, myself, my students, and our community. I really wanted to pick a project that I thought could make a difference in the lives of my NWTC students, K-12 students, and the NWTC community. Uh, this grant opportunity fit perfect with the values and our diversity, equity, and inclusive practices and mission at NWTC. For example, one of our values is that everyone has worth. NWTC is committed to embracing the worth of every individual, providing an inclusive place for all people, creating a respectful and stimulating environment necessary for intellectual and personal growth. So I really felt confident that this would be supported by my college. Also, I wanted to pick a project that I thought would not only support competencies of one of our program classes, that could also potentially be a service learning opportunity. So I then took a look at what courses I would be offering over the grant, and one of the courses that really stood out to me was a part of our Foundations of Teacher Education program, our Techniques in Language Arts course. This course appealed to me for a variety of reasons. One, two of the competencies I felt would fit really well with this grant. One being examining children and young adult literature. There's so many wonderful multicultural and diverse pieces of literature that are available now that we could share, as well as my students needed to implement and practice reading aloud. And what better way to do that than with actual students? Um, Also, a great part of this grant was that it would be offered when I was teaching one of the techniques and language arts classes in person, and I would have the opportunity to implement this with 22 NWTC program students. So I shared this opportunity with my students who were very excited at having this authentic uh, learning opportunity. Our next big step was what book to share. There are so many wonderful pieces of literature that are out there. One of the first ideas that came to my mind was I wanted to pick a local author. So that helped narrow my search. And I also knew that we wanted to pick a piece of literature that would be more appealing for younger children. So in my research, I came across this amazing book by Miranda Paul, who was raised in Wisconsin, called Speak Up. This book shared examples and taught students about how they can make a difference in their community. So the theme of it was community, racial, and social justice, activism, and culture. Um, Ultimately, this book would teach my students, myself, and the young children that they would be working with to use their voices to speak up on an topic or issue that was meaningful to them. And it shared with them how they could make a difference. Then the next step was what I think is a great example of also reinforcing employability skills. My students had to collaborate with a classroom teacher. And in doing that, they had to go and identify an environment in which they could share, speak up with children, uh, which resulted in them connecting with 4K classroom teachers, elementary classrooms, after school programs, and child care centers. And at the end of the project, over 165 students in our local community had the opportunity to hear the theme of Speak Up, how their voice can make a difference. And what was also great was the local communities reached beyond just Green Bay, because the NWTC area also included schools in Pulaski and Peshtigo and Bondwell. So just a few thoughts on how this benefited my NWT students and future educators. The first one that I already shared is that students had to plan, reach out to classroom teachers to arrange the activities and the ability to read aloud and share, speak up. Uh, they also had to practice some of the competencies and best practices with reading aloud to children. So before they went out and shared this with classroom and students, they had to sit down and plan. They had to identify key vocabulary words to pre-teach students. They had to incorporate questioning while they were reading. And then just in general, using tone and gestures while reading aloud. They then had to record themselves practicing, including how they would teach vocabulary and the questions that they would use. And then they finally went out and shared with classrooms. At the end, they then had to have students complete an extension activity, which I'll share a little bit more with you. And then as part of the grant, we were able to purchase the books that they then donated to their classroom, as well as we had pencils made for each student in the classroom, child care center, after school program that said Speak Up on it as a reminder after my students left. And then students were required to reflect on the experience. They took, as you can see, some photos. They reflected on how they personally learned and grew from the experience. And then one of our requirements for graduating from the program is students have to create a professional portfolio. So students now had another service learning experience that they could put into their portfolios. So just to kind of share with you some of the thoughts that my students included in their reflections. One student said this book taught them, the students, that their voices were important and that they can have a big impact. They now know they can make a difference by doing something so little like smiling at a stranger and inviting them to play. Overall, I really enjoyed this book and the kids loved it too. They all had a lot of fun making their posters, and it was super sweet to hear what makes them want to speak up. And you can see that this is an example of one of the extension activities that the students did. The student continued on to say, I think books like this are powerful and really get kids to think. Even though these kids are only 4 and 5 years old, they were still able to think about their passions and what they feel they should speak up about. This one was actually from one of the students. When my student asked, what do you think speak up means? Many of the students, when they were first asked this question, thought that it just meant that they had to talk loudly. But Branson, who was 7, said he thinks that it means doing things that are right, even when others are doing something else. Along with that, he had mentioned helping others when they are in need and always being there to lend a helping hand. Another student said, this activity brought out some excellent discussions. I was pleased to see that the students were eager to share their thoughts and had knowledge about the subject. It was obvious that the students were listening to the story and got something out of it, which was encouraging to me. I'm looking forward to doing more read alouds with students in the future. And then finally, one of my students drew a heart. I thought that was a good way because you know in your heart you are doing the right thing by speaking up. So not only did my students learn and grow from this experience and how they saw the impact that they made with the students and in the classrooms that they shared the theme of Speak Up and the extension activities. I, as an instructor, were just in awe of how my students embraced this project. Like I said earlier, how it was authentic learning, um, in that they see themselves doing more activities like this in the future. And I hope that the students, the 165 students that were had the opportunity to participate in this book and the extension activities will look at their pencils in the future, and or even more importantly, that will remind them if they do see someone that is being treated unkindly or something they're passionate about making a difference in, that they now have the courage and the tools to be able to speak up to make a difference. And I thought this I hope that you can see it, but up in the right-hand corner is one of the posters that one of the students made, and it just says, "Love is love." And I think that just really sums up the impact this grant had. So just in conclusion, I shared with you some of the resources. If you go to Miranda Paul's website, all of her books are listed there, as well as the free extension activities. And just on a final note, I would just like to express my gratitude for the Equity in the College Classroom uh, committee, because it was such a collaboration between the UW system, Wisconsin Technical College system, WICU colleges, Wisconsin tribal colleges, and then finally the Bringing Theory to Practice for these funds. Uh, the process of this is really like the first time I've applied for a grant on my own, uh, and I just believe that it was the process was um, so easy, and just the passion of the group and supporting myself as an educator, and the process of my finding how I could make a difference in creating and putting into practice diverse and equitable and inclusive practices so easily. So I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.